worth over $1 million today. And he's got a little marina down at the bottom of the cliff below his house. And so I write about poor Doug living at home, and give the poor guy a call. He's lonely, and especially girls call him. And I said, he's listed in the phone book, and in case you don't have a phone book isn't handy, here's his number. Put that in the column. Well, his phone started ringing about 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, back then, and the Bulldog would come out about midnight and would be in the all-night beaneries by midnight, 12:30. And so the guys would stumble out of the bars, and they'd stop for a chili and cheeseburger on their way home. And they'd get the paper, the Bulldog edition back then, and the Bulldog you'd get ink all over your hands, you know, all over your fingers. And they would read that they were reading the column on Deacon, and here's the number. So they'd walk over to the payphone, put a dime in, and call him. And the middle of the next morning, he's telling his neighbor, he said, I don't understand it. My phone has been ringing all morning. And the neighbor said, well, Doug, have you read the paper yet? And so he did, and that started it. And then he changed the message on his recording machine to invite everybody to a party the following Friday at my house. And he said, here's the address, and for further information, you can call Dan at this number, and he gave my number on his recording machine. Now, I have driven everybody to call him, and now he's inviting everybody to a party at my house. But I'm pretty clever at that time. I had just bought this little attachment from Ohio Bell, and that was call forwarding. You dial in this call forwarding, and it rings wherever. And I would use it if I was, going to be gone that night, going to Herb's Tavern or something, and I would put in dial the number of Herb's Tavern, so that my phone would ring twice, and then it would bounce automatically to whatever I had dialed in for my call forwarding. And so I dialed in the code for call forwarding, and then dialed Doug's number in there. And so now every time my phone would ring, it would bounce right back to Doug for more information. Anyway, that Friday night, I get home, and then he would change it every day, like bring a shovel because Dan has buried silver dollars in the front lawn, dig them up. And another one, bring spray can paint because Dan's got a graffiti contest on his house. He's having his house painted next week. And if you know any Hell's Angels, invite them. So I get home that Friday night about 9 o'clock from work. I had to do the advance obit on Jesse Owens, who died a couple days later. And so I get home about 9 o'clock, and there were signs in the neighborhood, and I could see burned out flares on tree lawns, drive up West Clifton to Arlington to Overlook, signs nailed on trees, Coughlin's party this way with arrows. I get to there's about 100 people whom I don't know in my house, and they were all drinking beer and smoking pot. My house never smelled sweeter.
Oh. What a perfect place to take the first break of the show. Did I tell you guys, we haven't even popped the top off of this. Did I tell you were going to love this or not? Trust me, plenty more stories like this to come. It's going to be a great ride. Thanks for going through it with us. Now's a great time, by the way, to tell somebody else to tune in to the Sports Fix. You sit tight. We'll be right back with more of Dan Coughlin, Jonathan Knight, and the Sports Fix.
This is the Sports Fix.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
They call me Mr. Pig!
We'll call you whatever you like, as long as we can call you a fan of the Sports Fix.
Sports Fix listeners, you've heard me talking about it. Millionaires being made all season long at DraftKings.com, America's favorite one-week fantasy football site. I've been playing there too. It's now J-Rock's favorite one-week fantasy football site. What's one-week fantasy football? That means no season-long commitments. Play whenever you want. Have a player who's hurt? That's no problem at all because you change everything week to week. Injuries don't derail your chance at victory. It's a new season every week. You're never stuck with the same players. You can can pick your team in just minutes and be on your way to winning huge cash. This season, one listener turned $10 into $5,000. Another turned $2 into $10,000. And a new millionaire has been crowned nearly every week this season at DraftKings.com. You could be next. Imagine winning $1 million in one day. $1 million just for playing fantasy football at DraftKings.com. Head to DraftKings.com now and use promo code Spreaker to play for free in the $10 million Fantasy Football World Championships. DraftKings.com. Bigger events, bigger winnings, bigger millionaires. Enter Spreaker now at DraftKings.com.
SportsFix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs. There's literally only one place to go. FantasyJocks.com. Have you gotten your copy of Cleveland's Finest yet? Highlighting the best moments, players, and media members in Cleveland sports history?
He won it! Milo hit a three-pointer on the sideline!
In-depth personal interviews with some of the top names in Cleveland sports fill the pages of this incredible book. Cleveland's Finest by Vince McKee is this year's must-have book for every Cleveland sports fan. Available now at Amazon.com. Get your copy today.
It's just an old ball, really. Nothing more. We grew with it and studied it. We owned it and shared it. We prayed they would hit it and miss it. We prayed they would catch it and drop it. We wanted it to bounce and fly, speed up and slow down. We prayed it would come to us, and we wanted to give it away. We have watched it weather storms and bask in the sun. And it's always right here in our hands. Cleveland Indians, established 1901.
Hey, Cleveland and Sports Fix listeners everywhere. This is Al Pulowski of the Cleveland State Viking Radio Network and of Sports Time Ohio, wishing you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix, streaming live here on the sportsfix.net. J-Rock with you, and thank you so much for joining us, and I hope that you are enjoying this as much as I'm enjoying bringing it to you. I know that some people are enjoying it because I just had some great feedback during the break. We are sitting down and bringing you a once-in-a-lifetime interview and a once out of the archive. This has never been heard before. Myself, the sports writer extraordinaire, Jonathan Knight, we sat down with the one and only Dan Coughlin and talked over 40 years of Cleveland sports. Let's jump right back into this because I know you're having a good time.
And I'll tell you what, we've had some bad second and third stringers the last 20 years here, haven't we? Yeah. I'll never forget.
Most of them starting.
How about let's go back to the Belichick days when that dreadful week when he fired Bernie Kosar.
Todd Philcox.
Right, yeah.
And
Philcox.
And Vinny Testaverde was hurt and couldn't play, so yeah, he had to go with Todd Philcox. And I think they've lost that game narrowly up in Minnesota. What did the Indians got, a safety and a field goal or something or whatever? We have had some terrible second and third string quarterbacks in this town since then. Wow.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's no doubt.
When you think about that, just saying Todd Philcox, it's amazing to think that for as much as they call him a genius now, that on that week that Bill Belichick said, I would rather go with Todd Philcox than Bernie Kosar.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a coach cutting off his team's nose to spite its face.
That is correct.
That's what Bill Belichick's era in Cleveland was. He was going to do what he thought was right, regardless of whether or not it was good.
That's right. It turned out that his what was that 4 years here in Cleveland or 5 years, that was nothing but on-the-job training for him to become a head coach.
Absolutely.
And that seems to be a pattern. We talk about it, JK, a lot on the show. Cleveland, for a lot of different sports, whether it's coaches or players, is that training ground where a lot of people come here and learn the game and then go somewhere else and win.
That's correct. Yeah.
Why is that? Is there a reason? Like, what are your thoughts on that, just from having so much experience with Cleveland sports?
Oh, boy, I wish I had that answer for you. I look back at Forrest Gregg. We let him go after 3 years, and he winds up taking the Cincinnati Bengals to a Super Bowl.
Right.
And Belichick, of course, becomes now one of the great geniuses in the NFL. I mean, we have to acknowledge that. But, boy, he was not a smart coach when he was here. But, okay, that's – I think that those are our prime examples of those are our prime examples. After that, we don't have any other examples like that. No,
coaching-wise,
not in football. Coaching-wise,
players, we have a lot.
Yes.
My God, yes.
That's a different story. But
Yes. And we can go back as far as right now. We're in an era when we have to trade players because we cannot afford to sign them because of the way baseball has been gone. By the way, since I touch on that subject, if the Dolan brothers had gotten the Cleveland Browns in 1998 when they held the auction, the Browns would have been in at least a couple Super Bowls by now. And I say this for this reason. Their football expert was going to be Don Shula, not Carmen Policy. Anyway, we wind up with Carmen Policy, a mob lawyer from Youngstown. He's the guy who was Al Lerner's football expert, who put that football organization together. My God, we're still paying for that 13 years later.
Yeah.
But with Don Shula putting together a football operation, we would have been in Super Bowls by now. In fact, we would be a dominant force in the league. He would have got us. He would have used those high draft picks wisely. And by the way, the Dolans, we would have been. They would have been great owners in the NFL, because once you buy a franchise in the NFL, you never have to spend another dollar of your own money, because it all comes in from the profit sharing, and also because of the salary caps. You can run a very good business in the NFL.
A great point.
In baseball, it's the only major sport that does not have a salary cap and profit sharing, and so or not profit sharing, but income.
Right.
And so that's we'll look at, and then how unfair it is that not only does Randy Lerner then inherit this team from his father, who paid $530 million for it, but now he sells it and makes another $500 million on the deal. That is so unfair.
Yeah.
And talking about the Browns and that restart there, that throws me back. You actually were here on the airwaves during the years the Browns were leaving, and the whole mess with them leaving town. Is that around the time you were on WHK?
That's right. That was so weird in 1995. I was doing the pregame and postgame shows on WHK with let me see, it was Casey Coleman, my partner, on the pregame and postgame shows.
Yeah.
Anyway, suddenly the Browns leave. That was announced, the 1st of November or so. Immediately, all the advertisers on all of the broadcasts pulled their ads. They took down the signs. All the signs had to be covered at the stadium because all the advertisers demanded that their signs be covered. If you couldn't take them down, just cover them. And so we would do the post game shows and even during the games, no commercials. And so you got to go to the bathroom. Well, you can't because there's no commercial breaks. It was so weird. Yeah.
Was that the worst story that you had ever been a part of in your years in Cleveland?
Oh, without a doubt.
The most heartbreaking, the most ugly. I would imagine
it was. And really back in